Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into some sources that really challenge how we think about success and getting things done.
Yeah, they definitely turn conventional wisdom on its head. We've got articles, notes here, making a pretty bold claim, actually.
Which is?
Well, the world tells us success means grinding away, right? Sacrificing sleep, always being on.
Absolutely. Nonstop hustle.
But these sources, they suggest the real keys to changing your life might be, well, simpler. Even counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive, like
Yeah.
what? Getting more sleep.
Exactly, sleep, and also dedicating time to just spacing out. One source even calls it outre, that kind of idle time.
Wow, okay. Spacing out. That sounds almost lazy by today's standards.
It does, doesn't it? But look, our mission here is to unpack the key insights from all this material.
Right. Distill them into something you can actually use.
Precisely. Ideas that, according to these people, genuinely transform their lives. And they believe it can work for others, too.
Okay, let's get into it. We have this image, don't we? The successful person is always working, always looks sharp, maybe a bit intense.
Yeah, the constant grinder. But one source, this is from someone running a pretty big business, 130 employees, also a best-selling author, tells a story that just shatters that.
Oh, what happened?
They were on vacation, Phuket, I think, partying till 6 a.m. with people who had zero idea who they were professionally.
And people were surprised.
Totally surprised. They expected this, super serious, visibly smart person, not someone just cutting loose and enjoying themselves.
Huh. So that really highlights the disconnect, right,
Mhm.
between the image and maybe the reality.
Exactly. And it drives home the core argument. It's not purely about how much you work. It's about how effectively you use your brain.
So brain efficiency over just brute force hours.
That's the idea. Master how your brain works, apply these principles, and you could become, say, 10% more efficient than the next person.
And that 10%, it compounds.
Massively. Over time, it leads to greater success, wealth, happiness. It's about leverage, not just effort.
So optimizing the brain, that's the game. And the first step, according to these sources, is something most people, especially younger folks, seem to actively fight against.
You guessed it. Sleep.
Right. The whole sleep is for the weak mentality. Sleeping 3 or 4 hours is like a badge of honor.
It's pervasive. But the sources are really clear. Aiming for 7 to 8 hours. That's way, way more beneficial.
Okay, so why? What's happening during sleep that's so vital, based on the brain science they reference?
Well, it's not downtime. Not really. Your brain is incredibly active. It's organizing all the information you took in during the day.
Sorting things out.
Sorting, processing, and crucially, recombining information. This is huge for creativity, for forming new ideas, seeing new connections.
So sleep isn't time away from becoming successful.
No, it's an essential part of the process. You sleep to make your waking hours more productive, more insightful. It's an investment.
An investment in peak performance. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that leads right into managing brain capacity, doesn't it? From that book, Rewire Your Brain.
Exactly. Think of it like a runner.
Okay. You're fresh. You can sprint 100 meters in, say, 10 seconds flat. Amazing speed.
Right. Your absolute best.
But try doing that sprint again and again and again. Your time slips, right? 10.5 seconds, 11 seconds, maybe eventually even 17 seconds. You're fatigued.
Yeah, naturally. Your capacity diminishes.
Your brain's similar. It resets overnight with sleep. So first thing in the morning, you've got that 10-second sprint speed, peak brain capacity.
But what do most of us do with that peak capacity?
We waste it. We immediately dilute it. Checking social media, scrolling news feeds.
Answering messages that aren't urgent, watching a quick YouTube video.
All that stuff. You're using your prime 10-second sprint energy on tasks that give very little return.
The sources are pretty blunt about this, aren't they? Even chatting with colleagues.
Yeah, especially casual chat right before you start your main work or just as you're settling in. It can significantly drain that peak morning focus.
That's tough, though. In an office environment, how do you realistically protect that time? It's about being intentional. Recognize that first hour or so is precious. If you can, delay the non-essential chats.
If you can't.
Be mindful. Keep it brief. Stay focused. Understand that it's costing you some peak capacity. The core message is, if you want extraordinary results, you have to guard that prime mental energy.
Be strategic with your energy, not just your time. And the payoff, they claim, is huge, doing in 4 to 5 focused hours what takes others 10 distracted hours.
That's the potential. Plus, they argue that consistently using your brain in this focused way actually strengthens it over time, like cognitive training.
Okay, so protecting peak time is key.
Yeah.
What else drains this precious brain capacity, according to the sources?
A big one is multitasking.
Ah, yes, the myth of multitasking. Trying to prep for a meeting while checking email and half listening to something?
Your brain isn't actually doing them simultaneously. It's switching back and forth rapidly, and every single switch costs mental energy.
Feels like you're being productive juggling all these balls.
But you're actually burning through your cognitive fuel incredibly inefficiently. The brain science books mentioned are clear on this. One source even says an hour of intense multitasking can basically wipe out your capacity for deep work for the day.
Wow. Okay, so single tasking when it matters. What's another major drain?
Decision fatigue. This was a really poignant point in the notes.
How so?
They use the example of someone coming from a really disadvantaged background. Think about the sheer number of small background decisions they face daily.
Things others might not even think about.
Exactly. Like, can I afford breakfast today? Will the water be cold when I shower? Should I walk further to save a bit of money? Each one seems small.
But they add up, chipping away at mental energy.
Precisely. They deplete the capacity you need for bigger choices, for creative thinking, for focused work, unlike someone maybe in a more optimized, stable environment.
That really reframes privilege, doesn't it? It's not just money, it's also about having fewer decisions, constantly draining your battery.
It is. And successful people, the sources say, often intuitively or deliberately reduce unnecessary decisions. Think Steve Jobs' turtleneck or simplified wardrobes.
Fewer choices about trivial things frees up capacity for important things.
Exactly. And the book teaches specific strategies for reducing that decision load and managing the essential ones more efficiently. It recognizes circumstances differ, but offers tools for anyone.
So, avoid multitasking, manage decisions. How does this translate into structuring your actual workday?
The sources categorize work into two basic types. First, there are tasks where your performance really matters for the outcome.
Like creative planning, generating new ideas, strategic thinking.
Exactly. High leverage stuff. Then there's the second type, on-off tasks.
On-off, meaning?
Meaning you either do them or you don't. Replying to routine emails, basic data entry, admin work. The quality variation has less impact on the overall result.
Okay, so high impact versus basically completion tasks.
Right. And the strategy, based on brain capacity, is pretty clear.
Tackle the high-impact, creative, strategic work during your peak brain time, likely the morning.
Absolutely. That's when you have your 10-second sprint speed. And save the on-off tasks, the routine stuff.
For later in the day, when your brain is naturally more tired, when you're down to that 17-second sprint speed anyway.
Precisely. And there's a warning here, too. Don't get stuck only doing the on-off tasks.
Why not?
Because you risk being labeled as someone only capable of simple, repetitive work. You might lose out on opportunities for more creative, impactful roles. It can lead to dissatisfaction, feeling stuck, maybe even leaving.
That makes sense. You get typecast. How do you avoid that, especially early in your career?
Be proactive. The sources suggest submitting your own creative plans or proposals regularly, maybe every couple of months, even if it's not assigned.
Really? Even as a junior person?
Yes. They emphasize that a fresh perspective combined with focused thinking can lead to ideas that are better than those from someone more senior who might be stuck in routine. It's about the idea, not just the title.
That takes some courage, but I see the potential. And they provide evidence for these brain limitations, right? To back this up.
They do. There's that famous judge study showing decision quality drops significantly in the afternoon.
Right, impacting parole decisions.
And an experiment they call the button experiment. Basically, doing simple, repetitive button-pressing tasks depleted cognitive resources, making people less accurate on subsequent problem-solving tests.
So it proves the brain fatigues, and timing matters for critical thinking.
Exactly, which is why you leave those simple emails and messages for when your brain is tired. It's like the runner stretching when their speed has dropped. Conserve your peak energy for the races that count towards success.
Okay, so we've covered strategic sleep, managing tasks by energy levels. What about the other unconventional habit, the spacing out time?
Ah, yes, the daydreaming mode. This is presented as absolutely core, a life-changing habit, directly challenging that need to be constantly busy.
So instead of feeling guilty for zoning out, you should actually schedule it.
That's the recommendation. Intentionally set aside maybe 10 or 20 minutes each day just to let your mind wander.
And when do the best ideas tend to hit during this mode?
Often when you're not actively trying. Commuting, maybe on a plane with no phone signal, looking out at nature, even just feeling a bit bored after finishing a task.
The comparison they make is powerful. 10 minutes of spacing out leading to a breakthrough idea is worth more than 9 hours of grinding away unfocused.
Infinitely more valuable. It's about creating the mental space for synthesis, for connection.
The speaker in one source had a personal example of this.
Yeah, they mentioned their successful YouTube channel idea came directly from this practice. They deliberately left their phone in the car, felt bored, let their mind drift, and the idea emerged.
Wow.
They also credit this mode for the insights in their best-selling book. It's where scattered knowledge and experience clicked together.
So this spacing out isn't empty time. It's when the brain connects the dots for creative solutions or identifying the root of problems.
Exactly. Great for generating money-making ideas or figuring out what's really going on with a challenge. The speaker even has a routine. 20 minutes of spacing out every morning, then implementing any good ideas that same day.
Just one good idea a month from that time could be huge.
That's the point. And they connect this to another habit. Media-free time in the evening. No phones, no TV after maybe 8:30 p.m., just reading or spacing out. They explicitly say this habit changed their life. It's about creating the quiet conditions.
Creating the conditions that flows nicely into the second source in this concept of the one-tip theory, or
Yes, the difference made by just one small edge, one different approach. And it comes from a really relatable, very human story.
the speaker's own experience with grades.
Right. Ranked 38th out of 45 in their class, made this huge, passionate resolution. I'm going to study harder than anyone, poured everything into it.
And the result?
Improved to 35th place.
Ouch, all that effort for minimal gain. That must have been crushing.
It was a shock. But it led to this crucial insight, that feeling of, my resolve is special. I'm trying harder than everyone. It wasn't unique.
Everyone feels that way when they're struggling.
Pretty much everyone in a similar position feels that same desperation, that same intense desire to push harder. It's not a differentiator in itself.
And that applies beyond grades to life struggles, too.
Yeah.
That feeling of, why is my life so hard?
Yeah, it's a common human feeling, not proof that you're uniquely burdened or not trying hard enough.
So if sheer effort isn't the key differentiator, what is?
Making that one tip difference. Doing something slightly differently, not just more the same. And crucially, framing this difference based on brain science, not just generic work smarter advice.
And what is that core difference they advocate?
Instead of just trying to cram in 9 hours of work, dedicate a small amount of time, maybe 10 to 30 minutes daily, or even just weekly, to pure focused thinking, deep immersion, or that intentional spacing out we just talked about.
But that's hard, right? With all the distractions.
Incredibly hard today. Our environment trains us for distraction, social media, notifications, endless streaming, constant dopamine hits for shallow engagement.
So breaking that pattern is the real challenge.
It is. But the sources emphasize the cumulative power. Do this consistently, this focused thinking, this different approach for 5 years, 10 years. You'll be operating on a completely different level than competitors who are just trying to work harder within the old paradigm.
But it's not about feeling special. It's about consistent application of brain science-backed methods.
Yeah.
That's what creates the one-tip difference and leads to a transformed life.
Precisely. Which brings us to a very practical technique from the second source for how to do this. The 30 by 5 method.
Okay, 30 by 5. How does that work?
It builds on the idea that big, vague goals often lead to failure. Like, I'll exercise for an hour, then you don't go. Or I'll study for 9 hours, then get distracted.
Small, achievable goals are better. Like just aiming to get to the gym for 10 minutes.
Exactly. Lower the barrier to entry. The 30 by 5 method is specific. 30 minutes of ultra-focused work, no distractions, then repeat that 5 times.
So 2.5 hours total of pure concentrated effort.
That's the core idea. And the rules are strict. Use a timer. Phone off. Or silent and out of sight. No casual chat. If you need a quick break, like the bathroom, pause the timer. It's about pure focus time.
The speaker tested this themselves, didn't they, back when they were younger?
Yeah, at 22. An instructor claims students supposedly studying 10-15 hours were actually getting less than 5 hours of real focus. The speaker timed themselves and found it incredibly hard to even hit 4 hours of genuine, uninterrupted concentration.
That's really revealing. It shows how much work time is just noise.
It really is. And that's why 2.5 hours using 30 by 5 can be more productive than a scattered 9-hour day. You eliminate the constant energy drain of switching tasks and refocusing. You avoid that anxiety of not hitting a vague time goal.
The sources mention 4 specific benefits to this 30 by 5 method. The first is obvious. It prevents distraction.
All right, 30 minutes is short. There's no time to really go off on tangents. But there's a crucial tip here.
What's that?
Avoid grabbing your phone or checking social media immediately after the 30 minutes is up.
Ah, right. Let the brain consolidate.
Exactly. Your brain needs a few moments to process that focused work and lock it into longer-term memory. Instant stimulation disrupts that. Take a short 5-minute break, instead walk around, close your eyes, like the Pomodoro technique suggests.
And this ties back to the speaker's habit of keeping their phone silent.
Yeah, they mentioned not missing an important call in 7 years despite this. It's part of creating that distraction-free environment, a one-tip difference habit.
Okay, benefit 2. It provides peace of mind.
Totally. You complete your 5 sessions, you have a concrete win for the day, you know you achieved your focused work goal. That feels much better than working 9 hours, but feeling vaguely unproductive and anxious.
A clear sense of accomplishment daily. That sounds powerful.
It is, and they caution to progress gradually. If you nail 5 sessions, maybe try 6 next week, not jump straight to 10. Small, sustainable steps are key to avoid demotivation.
Makes sense. Third benefit. It gives a dopamine reward. How?
By making work feel a bit like a game, you have clear numerical markers. Session 1 complete, session 2 complete, up to 5. Our brains love that concrete feedback.
More than just abstract concepts like, I studied hard today.
Much more, like seeing your rank climb in a game or hitting your step count goal. That number makes it feel rewarding and builds confidence for the next day.
And the fourth benefit. It optimizes time.
Yes, because that intense focus encourages you to tackle the hard stuff, things you might normally put off. Reading that complex report, organizing scattered notes, deep creative thinking.
So use the 30 by 5 for demanding tasks, not just easy stuff you already know how to do.
Definitely. That's where the real value is. Use a timer, Pomodoro, smartwatch, phone app, but keep the phone out of sight. And create an environment with zero opportunity for distraction, like a library.
It all comes back to that one-tip theory, using brain science for differentiation. Even just 10 minutes of focused thinking, if 30 is too much to start.
Even that, they suggest, can make life significantly easier by building that focus muscle and generating valuable insights.
So when you pull all these threads together, the strategic rest, sleep, spacing out, managing brain capacity, avoiding multitasking, decision fatigue, structuring work, high impact versus on-off, and focus techniques like 30 by 5.
You really see a coherent philosophy emerge. These aren't just random productivity hacks. They're presented as the small, consistent habits, the one-tip differences that compound over time.
Leading not just to more output, but to becoming, as they say, completely different people living completely different lives.
Exactly. It's about transformation through these seemingly simple, brain-aligned practices.
And the examples they provide really drive this home, not just the speakers themselves, but historical figures too.
Yeah, think of Immanuel Kant, finding his profound philosophical insights during his daily 2-hour walk and thinking time. Just walking and thinking.
Or Warren Buffett attributing investment breakthroughs to 30 minutes of quiet, undisturbed newspaper reading each day. He calls it life-changing.
Serena Williams, 15 minutes of daily meditation, building that mental toughness, that strategic edge, helping her rise from immense challenges to become a legend.
J.K. Rowling. The ideas for Harry Potter famously starting to flow while she was just spacing out on a train journey changed everything for her.
Steve Jobs, dedicating 10 minutes each morning to quiet time, clarifying goals, simplifying problems, seen as key to Apple's innovation.
Oprah Winfrey, facing such adversity, starting with just 15 minutes of reading daily as a child, believing that small investment could change her destiny. And it did.
Even Elon Musk, reportedly dedicating 30 minutes a week just to asking why. Challenging assumptions to find fundamentally different approaches.
These aren't superhuman feats, are they? They're accessible habits. Yeah. Sleep, walking, quiet reading, focused work blocks, asking questions.
Exactly. But applied consistently, with intention, grounded in how our minds actually work best. That's where the extraordinary outcomes arise. It offers a real path to change your trajectory, unlock potential, not by just grinding harder in the same way, but by working and living smarter.
It really does shift your perspective. Your most valuable resource isn't just time on the clock. It's your brain's energy, its clarity, its capacity for focus and insight.
And mastering how to cultivate and deploy that resource through rest, focus, minimizing drains, dedicated thinking. That seems to be the real one-tip difference these sources are pointing to.
It's about creating the internal conditions for those breakthroughs, for that transformation.
Well said. Creating the space for insight to emerge.
So maybe a final thought for you listening to this deep dive. If history's most successful and impactful people found their edge, built entirely different lives through habits as simple as spacing out for 10 minutes or focusing intensely for 30, what kind of one-tip difference, grounded in these ideas, could you introduce into your life starting today? What powerful ideas, what shifts, what transformations might just be waiting for you in those quiet, focused moments you decide to create?